Jim, let's get at least one more thing before we get out of here. On the experience, we're going to talk Dynamite and all the Vince McMahon resignation news and John Laurinaitis and Ashley Massaro and just one thing after another.
And Billy Jack.
Well, Billy Jack.
Let's tell the people right now.
We can talk about that now. Let's get that done.
Yeah, but let's also tell the people what you had no earthly clue of what I was talking about. Billy Jack, 110 Soldier, hit song, 1971, top 40, the group Coven. You didn't know what I was singing. On the bloody morning after, 110 Soldier rides away. Da-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Though the people of the mountain sent the message down the hill of the gold that's buried wherever in our valley we will share. I can't remember the words, but it's 50 years ago, but it was a goddamn hit song. You've never heard that song.
It's weird that it's one person singing, but you sound like two insects being multi-tracked. No, you listen.
There was harmony on the song.
There's some crap shit that was released too that like didn't really survive to today that people don't like rave about. So I'll check it out sometime. But no,
that was an incredible movie with a hit theme song that potentially was, and I think it did well in the Oscar running as well. And it was the year before. There's got to be a morning after from the Poseidon Adventure. There's got to be a morning after.
Stop. Come on. There's only so much time.
See, on the bloody morning after.
Cut out
there's
now.
got to be a morning after.
It was cut out now.
It was a whole series of the Oscars in the early 70s about morning afters. They even named a pill after it. But the bloody morning after, and then there's got to be a morning after, and
I feel like there's a disconnect.
Well, see, because you haven't heard that song.
Billy Jack Haynes.
Look it up.
All right, well, let's talk about the Billy Jack in wrestling, who, of course, took the name Billy Jack and the gimmick and the hat and everything from the movie out of the Pacific Northwest, out of Portland, Oregon, in the early 80s. One of those guys that was on the cover of a bunch of magazines before he even did anything. And then what he did didn't go to where I think a lot of people thought it would have. And now the word out, and I don't know if it's official or not, but reportedly Billy Jack Haynes murdered his wife this past week and was arrested either in Portland or just outside of it. What do you know about all this? And let's talk a little bit about someone who, the older he got, the wilder a personality he became, Billy Jack Haynes.
Well, apparently it is legitimate because some of the inside wrestling folks over there in the Pacific Northwest have said, because the news at first said an ex-pro wrestler has been arrested after a standoff. Apparently people heard gunshots, a gunshot or gunshots coming from the house in a quiet neighborhood somewhere outside of, as you mentioned, Portland. And when the cops got there, there was an uncooperative individual inside. There was a 2-hour standoff, and finally they got him out. Whether, I guess he, surrendered, whatever the case. They go inside, find a dead woman, which apparently was his wife. She was 70, I think. He's got to be close, if not. And, they didn't, because it's been so long since he was, in the public eye, and also they didn't give out, any names or anything with the initial reports, but some of the people that are tuned into the wrestling scene in that area were quick to, get on Twitter and or spread the word around to certain people that, yeah, it's Billy Jack. And, we've talked about him. I don't even know what the title of the clip is, but if they go to do you know what it is? The YouTube channel where we talked about the various stories about Billy Jack and some of my interactions in Dallas and in Crockett, and just his history. But so I don't know if people want to go back and search those out. I don't want to repeat a lot of stuff, but basically it was a deal where as soon as he was seen when he was in his younger days, I guess however old he is now, he was what, 30 easily when he got started in wrestling. But he had that immense bodybuilder physique and the black hair and the beard. He looked like an action movie star. You know, stand him next to Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger looks like the little buddy, right? And as soon as the promoters saw him, they said, oh, this is the next Hulk Hogan. And we talked where he was always based out of Portland, but he went to Florida and lasted long enough to have good pictures taken. And that was Nancy Benoit was one of the models that was in his publicity pictures down there. That was her first.
That's right.
You know, entree into wrestling. And then, you know, the deal with Dallas when he got the spot to replace Kerry when they thought Kerry was going to do the movie. Kerry wasn't going to do the movie, and, you know, Billy Jack went back to Portland. But a lot of people remember the story his first night there. He and Chris Adams had heat with Billy Jack over their mutual relationship with Jeannie Clark, right? And
Billy
Chris
Jack
Adams
was married to her.
Well, yes, Billy Jack had been married to her, and then she'd gotten involved with Chris, right? When they broke up, and or vice versa.
She came over from England with Chris, and by the time they got to Portland, her and Billy Jack became a thing, and her and Chris became more of, they weren't together, they were just in the States together, and they had a child, right. But she ended up marrying Billy Jack Haynes.
That's right. And I apologize for not having everybody's marital status right on the tip of my tongue. But the point being, when Chris Adams found out Billy Jack was going to debut in Fort Worth on that Monday night, Chris was the world-class TV champion. He left town and didn't come back all week until they got Billy Jack to be able to promise and assure Chris Adams that he wasn't going to fucking kill him. And then Billy was gone there. And then the same year, when we went to work for Crockett, Billy Jack was in the Carolinas working for Crockett. Like September, October. Wasn't he on the Starrcade 85 that year?
He was, and he was in the TV title tournament, and it looked like he may have, I think it was the TV title tournament, it looked like he may have been getting geared up for something, and then he just walked out.
And then he was gone. And that was repeated everywhere he ever went. He'd stay a little while. He'd get pissed off about something would happen. He was a very different individual. And the stories went out. He was Scott Hall 10 years earlier or whatever, 5 years earlier maybe, where he had supposedly served time in prison for killing a guy barehanded, which is why that, you know, in a fight, obviously, which is why that he was so very soft-spoken and quiet. And he had a limp handshake, and he was not a person who drew attention in the locker room. Apparently, he was acting that way on purpose, because when he became his real self, he was out of fucking control. And then the run in the WWF.
The run that happened, because remember, Vince was ready to bring him in 1984. They even put him on the cover of the program, and they did vignettes on TV. He never came in. Instead, he went to World Class. Instead, he went to Crockett.
He was on the cover of Vince's magazine, never worked a day for him at that point in time.
Yeah.
But that's what everybody saw in him until they dealt with him. So anyway, then, you know, he tried to run opposition to Don Owens and several attempts in Portland and in Oregon and Washington in the late 80s, early 90s. Was always getting sideways with the commission out there, which wasn't, you know, wrestling fans to begin with. And then he's been in the news or popped up lately over the last several years for these weird videos he's done on YouTube and various places where he looked literally like a prospector out of Central Casting on an old episode of Gunsmoke with the gray hair and the toothless grin, and he's lost his body, and he's come down from the hills leading a mule or something, and he's raving and saying weird shit. And I think he's been one of the, like the Iron Sheik when he was going through troubles, where people around him maybe took advantage of him, trying to, you know, to get these videos out because people are looking at it like, what the fuck's the matter with this guy? But nobody, you know, nobody had him on the bingo card, as the kids say, for committing murder this week, I don't think.
Now, he has said in some of these wacky interviews that he was a hitman and that he participated in murders. I believe one that conspiracy theorists say involved the Clintons. He has said he was involved in it.
Yeah, but
and his WWF schedule kind of worked into it, made sense. I mean, who knows?
When you've got a guy that's that weird to begin with and then got weirder as time goes on, and something obviously happened to him, because I mean, he wasn't just wandering around the locker rooms 40 years ago talking like that and with that appearance. So something's happened, you know, whether CTE or we don't know, but you know,
he was the one. I mean, if you remember when people realized just how crazy he was, he said that Vince had Benoit and his family killed because I believe he was saying that Daniel was actually Vince's love child. Like that's how completely out there it got.
And even with modern revelations, no, that's way over the top. And so anyway, now apparently this is, and allegedly, innocent till proven guilty, but they drug him out of the fucking house and his wife is dead. So there you go. And you know, I remembered the song. I remember the chorus because it was an anti-war song because Billy Jack was an anti-war movie, right? And the whole story of the song, 110 Soldier, was the people down in the valley were pissed off at the people up on the mountain because they had a treasure that they had all to themselves and the people in the valley wanted it. And that was the deal. So the people of the valley sent the message up the hill asking for the buried treasure, tons of gold for which they'd kill. Came an answer from the kingdom, with our brothers we will share all the secrets of our mountain, all the riches buried there. So of course the answer to that was the people go up and slaughter all the people on the fucking mountain to steal their treasure. And they turned the rock over to see the treasure, and peace on earth was all it said. Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat a friend. Do it in the name of heaven. You'll be justified in the end. There won't be any trumpets blowing come the judgment day. On the bloody morning after, 110 Soldier rides away. That's the song.